Moving a fully loaded Boeing 747 using only ropes and wood sounds like a joke, but that is exactly what happened at Baalbek, but with even more weight.
How these stones came to be there, why they were placed there, and specifically how they were transported into place, because some of the stones are of such magnitude that modern machinery is incapable of putting them there, but somehow our ancestors were able to do this.
Everyone is obsessed with the pyramids, but these stones are 16 times heavier than the ones at Stonehenge. Scientists just used new digital brains to scan the tool marks on these rocks, and the results are honestly scary. The marks do not match Roman tools at all. Instead, they point to a civilization that vanished a long time ago.
The giant blocks in the foundation are clearly of a different building style than the temples that sit above. And in my opinion, that platform is not just ancient, it is prehistoric.
The data shows the timeline is totally wrong, and the real builders are still a mystery. The weight of history. For centuries, researchers and engineers have proposed theories about how the Romans managed this feat. Theories involving massive ramps, thousands of workers, wooden rollers, and extraordinary patience. But none of these theories have been successfully demonstrated. Many engineers privately admit they are not convinced the proposed methods would actually work. Then in 2023 and 2024, something changed. Multiple research teams deployed advanced computer analysis systems to study the Baalbek stones. These systems could analyze the marks left in the quarry, model the transportation logistics, and simulate ancient construction methods. The conclusions were unexpected and deeply troubling for conventional history. The analysis suggested that the methods attributed to the Romans could not have worked with the technology available in the first century. The marks on the stones show characteristics that do not match Roman tools and techniques. The transportation requirements exceed what human labor could accomplish using proposed methods. Most provocatively, the computer detected patterns suggesting the largest stones might be much older than the Roman temple by centuries, or even thousands of years. The implications are not good, not because they suggest something supernatural, but because they indicate that the understanding of ancient construction capabilities is fundamentally wrong. Either the world has dramatically underestimated what ancient peoples could achieve, or the timeline and history taught for generations is incorrect. If the world is wrong about Baalbek, what else might be wrong? Looking at the stones themselves is the only way to understand their impossibility. The trilithon consists of 3 massive limestone blocks forming part of the western foundation wall of the Temple of Jupiter. Each stone measures approximately 64 feet long, 14 feet high, and 12 feet deep. Their estimated weight varies by calculation method, but most engineers agree on approximately 800 tons per block. Some even guess it could be as much as 1,000 tons, depending on the exact density of the limestone. These are not the only massive stones at Baalbek. The foundation contains dozens of blocks in the 300 to 400 ton range, and in the quarry about half a mile from the temple complex lie 2 even larger blocks. The stone of the pregnant woman weighing approximately 1,000 tons, and the stone of the south weighing an estimated 1,650 tons. This is the largest worked stone block ever discovered anywhere in the world. These quarry stones are partially cut, but were never moved or put into the temple. They sit where ancient workers left them, providing a unique chance to study ancient techniques because the tool marks are still visible, and the stones remain in their original position. Modern engineering analysis of these stones reveals problems that old explanations struggle to address. To put 800 tons in perspective, a fully loaded Boeing 747 weighs about 440 tons. The largest modern mobile cranes can lift around 10,000 tons, but they require massive counterweights, sophisticated hydraulic systems, and solid foundation preparations. That technology did not exist in the first century. The Romans had cranes, and they were quite smart for their time. Based on designs documented and reconstructed by modern engineers, Roman cranes could lift maybe 100 tons under perfect conditions with multiple cranes working together. That is 8 times less than what would be required for a single trilithon stone. The conventional explanation involves not lifting, but sliding using wooden rollers, lubricated tracks, and massive teams of workers pulling with ropes. Estimates suggest a team of 40,000 to 60,000 workers pulling at once would be needed to move an 800-ton block using this method. The physical space required for that many people would make the entire operation a logistical nightmare. But here is the first problem the computer analysis identified. The ground between the quarry and the temple site cannot support that kind of operation. Soil compression modeling shows that 40,000 people standing on wooden rollers and attempting to pull an 800-ton stone would cause the ground to press down and change shape. This would cause the rollers to sink and the stone to become stuck forever. Even with extensive ground preparation, laying wooden tracks and packing the soil, the forces involved would cause the infrastructure to fail before the stone could be moved more than a few feet. Modern engineers who move comparable weights use steel tracks on reinforced concrete foundations. The Romans had neither. In 2023, a team of experts deployed machine learning to analyze every documented attempt at moving massive stones using ancient methods. They compiled data from experimental projects worldwide, where researchers attempted to copy megalithic construction. The computer found that successful stone movement using old methods stopped at approximately 200 tons under ideal conditions. Beyond this limit, every documented attempt either failed or required modern equipment to help. The computer calculated the chances for successfully moving stones weighing 800 tons using Roman-era technology and found less than a 2% chance of success. This basically says the official story is impossible. Something much more powerful than simple muscle and rope was likely used to place these stones. Proof in the stone. Evidence left behind in the dirt tells a story that the history books have tried to ignore for a long time. In 2024, a team from a famous university used computer vision to analyze high-resolution scans of the quarry stones. They specifically looked at the tool marks left by the cutting process. The computer was trained on thousands of examples of tool marks from documented historical quarrying operations. Marks from bronze chisels look different from iron tools, which differ from steel tools and modern diamond saws. When the computer analyzed the Baalbek quarry marks, the results were unexpected. The marks did not match Roman techniques documented at other sites. Roman quarries typically show evidence of systematic wedge and split methods. This means holes were drilled in lines, wedges were inserted, and then hit with hammers to split the stone. The Baalbek quarry stones show different marks. They show smooth-flowing cuts, suggesting a sawing or cutting action rather than splitting. The computer compared these marks to its database and found closest matches with much earlier methods, possibly from the Bronze Age or earlier, that used abrasive sawing with hard stones or sand-based cutting. More strangely, some cut surfaces show precision that should not exist in ancient quarrying. The computer detected flatness changes, measured in tiny millimeters across surfaces, spanning many feet. This is precision that would be remarkable even for modern stone cutting. Roman quarrying typically produced much rougher surfaces that would be finished at the construction site. But the Baalbek stones show finished surfaces cut in the quarry with precision that seems out of place for the period. One expert noted that the tool mark patterns do not fit comfortably with first-century Roman technology. Either the Romans at Baalbek possessed cutting techniques not documented anywhere else, or these stones were cut by an earlier culture using methods not currently understood. This raises the attribution problem that is making historians very uncomfortable. The Temple of Jupiter at Baalbek is dated to the Roman period, specifically the reign of Emperor Nero around 60 years after the Common Era. This dating comes from the style of the building, coins, and historical records. But what if the Romans did not build the foundation, but built on top of it? What if the massive platform predates the Roman temple, possibly by centuries or even thousands of years, and the Romans simply built their temple on a foundation they found? This would not be the first time this happened. The Romans regularly used earlier structures for their buildings, especially when those structures were impressively built and still worked. There is evidence suggesting exactly this scenario at Baalbek. The megalithic foundation platform uses different construction techniques than the temple above it. The lower parts feature the massive trilithon stones with their impossibly tight joints. The upper structures are typical Roman construction with concrete and smaller stones. The change between the two is visible and easy to see. Moreover, the megalithic platform is much larger than necessary for the Roman temple. It extends beyond the temple footprint, suggesting it was designed for something else, something bigger than what the Romans built. Arab historians from long ago preserve traditions claiming the Baalbek platform was built by giants before a great flood, or by ancient peoples whose names had been forgotten. In these accounts, the Romans merely built on foundations that already existed from a time before memory. Western experts dismissed these accounts as myths, but computer analysis is suggesting the old historians might have remembered something real. In 2023, researchers used computer analysis to determine the order in which different parts of the Baalbek complex were built. The computer analyzed joining techniques, weathering patterns, and material composition. The conclusion is that the megalithic foundation shows significantly more wear from the weather than the Roman temple structures. The computer estimated the foundation stones had been exposed to the wind and rain for 500 to 1,000 years longer than the temple remains. This pushes the construction date back to somewhere between 500 years before the Common Era and earlier. This dating contradicts the official timeline, but matches the tool mark analysis. It also explains why Roman sources are strangely quiet about the actual construction of the platform. They describe building the temple, but they never claim to have built the massive foundation. Perhaps because it was already there when they arrived. The deeper the investigation goes, the more it seems the Romans were just tenants in a house they did not build. The transportation problem is where the computer modeling revealed the most troubling impossibilities. Multiple teams created detailed simulations attempting to copy the movement of the stones from the quarry to the temple site. These simulations used variables like stone weight, ground conditions, and available wood and rope. A 2024 study used physics modeling to simulate every proposed transportation method. They tested the ramp theory, the roller theory, and the sledge theory. The computer ran millions of simulations. The result was that none of the proposed methods worked in more than 15% of the tries. In most simulations, the stones became stuck, the wood snapped, or the labor force was too big to fit in the space. The most successful method required 80,000 workers acting in perfect harmony. But this method still failed in most tries because of simple things like the ground getting soft or a single rope breaking. The computer also found a problem no one had talked about: turning corners. The route from the quarry to the temple is not straight. It includes at least two big direction changes. Turning an 800-ton stone on rollers would require forces that would almost certainly cause the stone to crack or become impossible to control. Modern engineering turns massive loads using engines, hydraulic systems, and precise math. The Romans would have needed to do this using human muscle and wooden equipment. They would have had to do it without damaging stones that needed to fit together with tiny precision at the final spot. The computer calculated that successfully moving all three stones would have taken 15 years of constant effort. Yet historical records do not mention this, and the ground does not show the remains of the massive work camps that would have been needed. There are no remains of thousands of wooden rollers, or the massive ramps that would have been built and then torn down. The lifting problem is even worse. Once the stones reached the temple site, they needed to be raised 20 feet. The official story involves ramps built to gradually raise the stones. But computer modeling of ramp construction reveals massive flaws. A ramp gentle enough to be useful would need to be over 150 feet long to reach 20 feet high. For an 800-ton stone, This ramp would need to be reinforced with a massive amount of stone and wood to prevent it from collapsing. The ramp itself would require more work than the temple walls. No evidence of these massive dirt works exists. The site was dug up extensively in the 20th century, and no remains of the ramps or support areas were found. The silence of the archaeological record is louder than the cheers of 40,000 imaginary workers. Evidence of lost tech. If the Romans did not build the foundation, the world is left with a ghost story about a missing civilization. In 2024, a very advanced computer analysis looked at this problem from a new angle. Instead of asking if Romans could build this, the researchers asked what technology would be required to build it. The computer was given the weights, distances, and precision requirements, and asked to design a method that worked. The computer's solution involved technology that did not exist in the first century. This included steel cables for heavy loads, hydraulic systems, and precision measuring tools. Most critically, it required a method of lifting that did not rely on just pulling, but used leverage systems far more complex than anything the Romans had. The researchers wrote that the requirements for Baalbek exceed Roman capabilities by a huge margin. This means either the Romans had secret technology we have never found, or someone else built it. The comparison with other giant stone sites around the world adds another troubling layer. In late 2023, researchers used computer pattern recognition to look at construction styles globally. The computer identified distinct signatures in how stones were sized, placed, and joined. Sites built by the same group or using similar tech show similar signatures, even if they are far apart. The computer found that Baalbek's platform shares signatures with sites that are much older than the Roman period. Specifically, it matches Bronze Age and earlier construction in the Mediterranean and the Near East. The Roman temple structures show completely different signatures. This pattern is consistent with the platform being built by an earlier culture. The computer could not identify which culture it was. The style does not perfectly match any known civilization, but the patterns suggest builders with knowledge and power beyond what is typically attributed to ancient people. The computer even detected subtle links between Baalbek's foundation and certain Egyptian stonework. This does not prove they are the same, but it suggests the builders of Baalbek had knowledge as good as Egypt's most advanced workers. The implications of all this computer analysis are not good for old-school history. If the conclusions are right, the Baalbek platform is thousands of years older than the temple. This means the timeline of human history needs a total rewrite. It means the foundation was built by an unknown group whose engineering was better than anyone in that region. The methods remain a mystery because the tech needed is more than what was documented. Either ancient people had engineering knowledge that was lost and left no trace, or the understanding of what ancient tech could do is totally incomplete. The trilithon stones represent a tech achievement that modern humans could not easily copy without our best machines. That is a humbling thought. It suggests some ancient skills were better than what we think was possible. If the world is this wrong about Baalbek, which has been studied for years, what else is wrong? How many other sites have been given to known civilizations when they were actually built by older unknown groups? The computer analysis does not prove any wild stories about space or magic, but it does prove that the old explanation for Baalbek does not work. The Romans did not build the giant foundation. They could not have with their tools. Someone else did it earlier, using methods we do not understand. One engineer stated that the math simply does not work for the Roman story. The physics does not work. Either the understanding of Roman skills is wrong, or the history is wrong. Either way, it is a major problem. That is why the computer findings are not good news. They prove that established history is wrong about one of its most famous sites. Being wrong about Baalbek opens doors to questioning many other stories. Some people in the field are resisting this, saying the computer models might be missing something. But the physical evidence stays the same. 800-ton stones moved half a mile, and placed with perfect precision using tools that supposedly could not do 1/10 of the job. That is not a guess. It is a reality that needs a new answer. The Baalbek mystery is not solved by the computer analysis. It is exposed as being even more mysterious than anyone thought. The comfortable story of Roman engineers doing something impressive has been replaced by a reality that is much harder to explain. No one knows who built the Baalbek Foundation or how they did it. After 2,000 years, the world finally has the tech to look at what ancient builders did. And that analysis shows we knew less than we thought. The mystery is deeper now. The confidence in explaining ancient winds was misplaced. Humanity's ancient past holds secrets and skills that are only now being recognized. History is not a straight line of getting smarter. It is a series of peaks and valleys where great knowledge has been lost. The stones stand as a silent witness to a power that once walked the earth and then disappeared without a word. The high-tech past. When the math fails, the only thing left to do is look at the theories that mainstream science is too scared to talk about. If the Romans could not have moved these stones with ropes and wood, how was it done? This is where things get truly wild. One of the most famous alternative theories is the idea of sonic levitation. Some researchers believe that ancient civilizations understood how to use sound waves to cancel out the weight of heavy objects. This sounds like science fiction, but modern scientists have already proven that small objects can be lifted using sound. The theory suggests that by using specific frequencies and giant horns or chanting, the builders could have made the 800-ton blocks float, or at least become light enough to push with ease. This would explain the lack of ramps and rollers. It would also explain how they achieved such perfect precision. If a stone is floating, you can move it into place with a finger, ensuring it fits perfectly against the next block. While there is no direct proof of giant ancient speakers, many ancient myths talk about stones singing or moving themselves into place when music was played. Another theory involves the use of electromagnetism or anti-gravity. The Earth has a natural magnetic field, and some believe the ancients knew how to tap into it. They suggest the Baalbek stones were placed at a specific power spot on the Earth's grid. By using some kind of ancient technology, they could have reversed the magnetic pull on the limestone, making it move like a hovercraft. This would allow them to glide the stones from the quarry to the temple without crushing the ground. It sounds crazy, but it solves the soil compression problem that the computer found. If the stone isn't actually pressing down on the rollers, the ground doesn't collapse. This theory often connects to the idea of a lost global civilization that had a different kind of technology than we have today. Instead of burning oil or using electricity, they might have used the natural energy of the planet. This would leave no pollution and very few traces, which explains why we haven't found their engines or batteries. Then there is the theory of the antediluvian or pre-flood world. Many cultures around the world have stories of a great flood that wiped out a highly advanced civilization. These people were often described as giants or as having godlike powers. The theory suggests that Baalbek was built long before the flood, perhaps 10,000 or even 12,000 years ago. These builders might have had a completely different way of seeing the world. They might have used high-tech cutting tools that used light or heat to slice through stone like butter. This would explain the smooth, saw-like marks found by the computer analysis. It would also explain why the weathering on the stones is so much deeper than on the Roman parts. If these stones sat through a massive global flood and thousands of years of rain before the Romans found them, their condition makes perfect sense. The Romans didn't move the stones because they found them already in place, part of a ruined world they didn't understand. Some even suggest that the stones weren't moved at all, but were poured like modern concrete. This is the geopolymer theory. It claims the ancients knew a chemical formula to turn crushed limestone into a liquid that could be poured into giant molds. Once it dried, it would look and feel exactly like natural stone. This would explain the perfect fit and the massive size. You don't have to move an 800-ton block if you pour it right where you want it. However, the computer analysis found quarry marks on the unfinished stones, which means they were definitely being cut out of the earth. This doesn't mean the geopolymer theory is wrong for every site, but for Baalbek, it seems the stones were indeed moved as solid objects. This makes the mystery even harder. If they were solid, and they weren't moved by ropes, and they weren't poured, we are left with a technological black hole. We are looking at a puzzle piece that doesn't fit into the picture of human history. The wildest theory of all is that the platform was not a temple at all, but a piece of ancient infrastructure. Some believe it was a landing pad or a base for something massive. The sheer size of the stones and the extreme precision suggest it needed to hold a weight far greater than a Roman temple. Why would you need stones that can hold millions of pounds just to put some marble columns on top? It is like using a nuclear power plant to run a single light bulb. It doesn't make sense. The platform's design suggests it was meant for heavy-duty use. Some speculate it was part of a global energy network, using the massive limestone blocks as a sort of giant battery or conductor. Whatever the truth is, the current explanation of wood and ropes is the most unbelievable theory of them all. The answer might be hidden in frequencies we can no longer hear, and energies we have forgotten how to see. A future built on the past. Baalbek is a warning that humanity can reach the heights of power and then fall into a dark age where everything is forgotten. When looking at the world as a whole, Baalbek stops being an outlier and starts being part of a pattern. The impossible stonework in Lebanon is echoed in the walls of the Giza Plateau in Egypt, the mountain fortresses of Peru, and the mysterious ruins in Japan and India. In all these places, the oldest layer is always the most advanced. The stones at the bottom are always the biggest, the most precisely cut, and the hardest to move. As time goes on, the building gets smaller and simpler. This is the opposite of how progress is supposed to work. Usually, things start simple and get more complex. But in the ancient world, it seems a master culture once existed that could move mountains. And every civilization that followed was just trying to live in their ruins. The computer analysis from 2023 and 2024 has effectively ended the myth that the Romans were the ultimate builders of the ancient world. While the Romans were great engineers, they had limits. Those limits are clearly defined by physics and the materials they used. The trilithon stones are beyond those limits. By admitting that the Romans didn't build the foundation, the world has to admit that it doesn't know who did. This creates a dark hole in history that is thousands of years long. Who were these people? Where did they go? And why did they leave behind only giant stones? Some think they were destroyed by a natural disaster. Others think they simply ran out of resources, or their society collapsed from within. But the stones remain. They are the most durable record of human achievement ever created. They have survived earthquakes, wars, and the rise and fall of dozens of empires. This realization is not good for the ego of modern humans. The world likes to think it is at the very peak of human ability. We have computers, rockets, and the internet. But if someone 10,000 years ago could move a stone that our best cranes struggle with, it means we are just one of many peaks in history. It means that progress is not a straight lineup. It is a cycle. And if it happened to them, it could happen to us. We could leave behind our giant steel buildings and silicon chips, and in 10,000 years, another group of humans might look at our ruins and wonder how we did it. Or, more likely, our steel will rust and our chips will turn to dust, while the stones of Baalbek will still be sitting there, exactly where they are now. They are the only true long-term storage of information we have. The final mystery of Baalbek is the message it sends to the future. By building something so big that it cannot be explained, the ancient builders ensured that we would never forget them, even if we forgot their names. They forced us to look at the stones and realize that our story is much older and more complex than we thought. The computer analysis hasn't solved the mystery. It has only removed the fake answers. It has cleared away the Roman cover story and revealed the true puzzle underneath. We are now standing in front of a wall that we don't know how to climb. We are looking at a past that is more advanced than the history books allowed us to believe. Does the existence of these impossible stones prove that a high-tech civilization was wiped from the Earth? It is time to wonder if history is a lie. Like and subscribe for more.